stress produce friction as a baseline condition, and friction that isn't managed becomes incident, and incident becomes investigation, and investigation becomes exposure. You manage it the way a good executive manages an organization, through people rather than directly, through structure rather than personal intervention, through the cultivation of trust that is earned rather than demanded, which is slower and harder and the only kind that holds. The meth moves in 3 streams. The visitors who swallow balloons are the riskiest and the most productive. You have arrangements with 6 external contacts who manage the ingress for 15% of the product value. The compromised CEO is a single individual who made a decision 5 years ago that you hold like a mortgage and who has been reliable because the alternative to reliability is a conversation that ends his career and possibly his freedom. And the mail operation, which cycles through methodologies on a 6-month rotation because any single method left static becomes detectable, and detectability is the thing you manage above everything else. You never touch product. This is a rule you established for yourself before you were shot caller and have maintained with the discipline of someone who understands that the distance between your hands and the product is the distance between your current sentence and a sentence that becomes theoretical rather than survivable. Your hands touch paper, paper that could be anything. Your hands touch phones during attorney visits. Your hands touch the food in the kitchen and the weights in the yard and the specific unremarkable surface of a Tuesday afternoon in a facility that is supposed to be containing you and is instead providing the infrastructure for something they never intended to build. The SHU comes for you in year 9. An investigation into the overdose death of a man on tier 3 who consumed product that came through channels connected to your operation. You don't know if the investigation has traction or if it's a pressure tool. The uncertainty is itself the tool. You sit in a cell 8 feet by 10 feet for 23 hours a day, and you read everything they allow, and you think, and you write letters to your attorney that communicate through language he understands, and you build the interior life that solitary requires, or else destroys you, and you choose the building because the alternative is not one you'll accept. 14 months, when you come back, G-Block is running. Different faces in 2 of the 4-tier lieutenant positions. One dispute that was mishandled in your absence and required retroactive correction. The product revenue down 11% from the baseline, which is acceptable attrition for 14 months of disrupted leadership. You assess all of this in the first week and make 2 personnel changes and 1 structural adjustment to the distribution protocol, and by the end of month 2, the block is back to its baseline performance. The council notes the recovery time. You are 41 years old, and you have been inside for 18 years, and you are the 3rd most senior shot caller in the state faction of your organization, and the promotion that is available to you is not something you've pursued, because the promotion that is available means the SHU not for 14 months, but permanently, means ADX or Pelican Bay SHU, means running an organization through letters and coded calls from a box that is smaller than a bathroom, which is the position that the most powerful men in your structure have occupied for decades, and which they occupy with a capability that you respect and have never wanted. You want to finish your sentence? This is the sentence you tell yourself. 6 years left on the original 22. 6 years if nothing adds time, and things have a history of adding time. You've had 2 additional charges inside, the Derek Cho assault, which the prosecution couldn't make stick, and a contraband possession charge in year 11 that cost you 90 days, and a formal classification escalation. The parole board has seen you 3 times. 3 times they've read the file, and the file is a document of what you are, and what you are is not what parole boards release. You know this. You've stopped performing for the parole board. The performance was costing energy that had better uses. Your daughter is 22 now. She was 4 when you came in. She visits twice a year. She is a woman you don't fully know and who doesn't fully know you, and the relationship you have exists in the specific space between those 2 true things. Real, but built on absence, which means it's built on what you each imagine rather than what you've experienced together. She studies nursing. She tells you about her classes and her apartment and her boyfriend, who you've heard about twice and about whom you've said very little. She doesn't ask about the block or the operation or any of it. She visits because she's decided you're her father regardless of what it costs her to decide, and you receive this with the specific mixture of gratitude and grief that is the emotional experience of loving someone from inside a life you can't bring them into. She looks like her mother, who you haven't spoken to in 14 years. You think about what you tell her, not your daughter. The 22-year-old version of yourself that came in on a Tuesday with a 14-year sentence and no operational understanding of what he was walking into. You think about what you tell him and you arrive at nothing clean. The version of you that needed to hear something was not in a position to hear it. The version that was in a position to hear it was already here, already shaped, already past the point where the warning has traction. You are not a man who was failed by a single decision. You are a man who was produced by a set of conditions that the decision was downstream of. And understanding this is different from absolving yourself of it, and you've been trying to hold both of those things at the same time for 18 years without dropping one of them. Some days you manage it, some days one of them wins. The ringing in your left ear started after a riot in year 7. It's constant now, not painful, just present. A frequency that underlies everything, like a note that never resolves. You've stopped hearing it separately from silence. It is what silence sounds like now. You check the count. Morning. 61 men whose positions you know and whose problems you carry in the part of your mind that never stops processing. You compose your instructions for the day through 2 intermediaries because your direct communication with the tier operations is minimal and deliberate. You eat breakfast at your table, and the table is yours in the way that things become yours inside a total institution. Not through ownership, which is not available, but through recognition, which is its own kind of property, the kind that doesn't appear in any legal document and is more enforceable than most things that do. 6 years, maybe, if nothing happens, if the administration doesn't build a case, if the council doesn't need something from you that costs more time, if your health holds in a body that is 41 years old and has absorbed the physical tax of 18 years in a maximum security facility and carries it in the specific way. The body carries long-term accumulated stress, which is quietly in the joints and the sleep and the thing your chest does sometimes at 3 a.m. that you haven't told the medical unit about because the medical unit is an information channel you don't use. 6 years is a story. You tell yourself that may be true. You've learned the difference between plans and stories, and you've learned to tell them to yourself anyway. Because the alternative to a story about 6 years is a story about forever, and that story costs too much to carry and still function. You function. That's the thing. That's the thing that doesn't make it into the outside narrative about men like you. The outside narrative needs you to be a monster or a victim, and you are neither one and both simultaneously, and the space between those categories is where you actually live, which is a space the narrative doesn't have room for. You are the shot caller. You are the product of a neighborhood the city stopped investing in before you were born. You are the father of a 22-year-old nursing student who visits twice a year. You are the man who managed G-Block through a 14-month absence from a solitary cell and brought it back to baseline in 60 days. You are all of these things at the same time, and none of them cancels out any of the others. The count is clean. The block is stable. The morning is what mornings are in here. Recycled air, fluorescent light, the specific texture of a day that will be mostly identical to yesterday and mostly identical to tomorrow, which is not tragedy. It is the condition you operate inside, and operating inside conditions that can't be changed is the skill that this place either builds or breaks. It built it in you. The cost of the building is what it is. The system that put 2 million people in cages and called it public safety has been running this experiment for 60 years, and the results are in, and the results look like you. That's not an excuse, it's a diagnosis. Excuses and diagnoses sound the same from far away and mean entirely different things up close. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. Next week, we're going inside the economics of what happens when a shot caller gets out and what the street and the institution do to each other when the wall comes down. Subscribe, you don't want to miss it.